learn to improve conversions and generate more leads with the video podcast at marketingoptimization.tv. Hi, and welcome to Marketing Optimization with Alex Designs. I'm host Alex Harris, and today we're chatting with Arun from FunnelEnvy. How you doing, Arun?
Great, Alex. Happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. To get started, let's tell people, what is your definition of optimization and why is it beneficial?
Sure. So, optimization, I think, fundamentally is taking your existing traffic and visitors and converting more of them into leads, sales, purchases, registrations. It's very dependent upon your business model. So for a lead generation company, they're looking to get more leads and also, very importantly, higher quality leads. For a software as a service company, it's not just user signups, it's also user retention. So fundamentally, it's converting that activity on your site into meaningful conversions, leads, purchases, registrations, etc., that have an impact on your bottom line. So I think it's not only the front end of the process, but also looking at what affects the business KPIs and the real business metrics to improve the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was checking out your site, FunnelEnvy, and I see that you're the chief optimizer. So tell everybody a little bit about your company and maybe like your framework to do your conversion optimization practices.
Sure. So we're still a pretty small agency. I got into conversion optimization actually as a consequence of being an entrepreneur for many years now, and I started doing some of the practices that are now being called conversion optimization or being bucketed into conversion optimization. The A/B testing, looking at the analytics, trying to make better decisions based on evidence, and actually test them out through the course of working with my own companies and some successes and failures along the ways. And as I reached out to some of the other companies that I worked with and advised, I realized not many of them were kind of taking advantage of some of the tools and techniques that can be really powerful for online businesses. So that's why I started FunnelEnvy about a year ago or so, and I've been working with clients to improve their conversions online. So when we look at a client and when we think about our framework for conversion optimization, it really falls into three areas that we try to improve. That are basically the core of conversion optimization for us. The first one is relevance, so making the online experience more relevant for the audience, and not only looking at the audience as a monolith for any particular company, but looking at audiences, sub-audiences, segments, etc., within that base, and personalizing that user experience, and speaking to the visitor, the prospective customers' pain, and empathizing with them, and really kind of getting into their heads. And that's just fundamentally marketing 101. The second aspect of it is the measurement. So we're CRO, and conversion optimization is very analytically focused. It's very data driven. So we're looking at the numbers both from an exploratory perspective. So what can we improve? Where are there opportunities to improve conversions? Where are people dropping out of the funnel? Where can we kind of pick them up? So we're constantly in the data, and we're also looking at it obviously as an ongoing measurement tool to be able to benchmark where we started and how we're improving over time. And the third aspect of it is experimentation. So we have great ideas, or I think we have great ideas in terms of how we can improve conversions, but we don't just accept those at face value. We go test everything. Right. There isn't a project or client that I've been on yet where I haven't said, I think this is our best bet to improve conversions, and then I come away surprised by the numbers. And that's the learning experience. That's what you learn from, and that's what you build upon and iterate on to really better understand your market and better understand your customers, and take that into practice and improve your site. Yeah.
Well, I see that your tagline on your website is making online businesses more profitable, and that's key. So optimizing not only the experience but maximizing the return on investment.
Right.
And we were talking before the call that you actually work on a lot of sites that may not have actually enough traffic to get to do the proper amount of testing that a big site would or so forth. And that probably relates to a lot of the audience in general. What would be some key takeaways to help people improve their conversions or do testing on smaller sites?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I wouldn't say that we've solved this by any means yet. Certainly, as you well know, sites with significantly more traffic. I mean, there's a high correlation between the speed at which you can test, get results, and the amount of traffic you have coming to the site. So we certainly do love to work with high traffic sites, and we do. But at the same time, as an entrepreneur and someone who's started and worked with many small businesses over the years, I'm keenly aware of the need for those sorts of companies to also better understand their customers, gather evidence, build strong hypotheses, and implement those in a rapid way. So it's certainly very important for those sorts of companies not to just drop the ball, in my opinion, on taking some of the practice, some of the broader strategies of conversion optimization to heart. But I think the tactics differ. And that's the key. So, as an example, one of the things that smaller sites can do is do more qualitative efforts. So, actually reaching out to their customers is probably the most important thing in understanding what about the experience frustrated them, why did they sign up, why have they stuck around, and just as importantly, pick up the phone and call the customers that haven't stuck around, or do surveys, or use tools like Qualaroo, which is incredible to get that information and identify those points of friction. Larger sites, they can throw a bunch of tests out there and figure this out based on the data coming through. Smaller sites, you've probably got to do more outreach and figure out ways that you can gather that information. There certainly for lower traffic sites, you may not be able to do the A/B testing in parallel, but you could look at it. You could do testing sequentially. And you probably should. Now the data is not going to be as great, and then your math and statistics guys are going to tell you, it's polluted data, and you're introducing statistical confounders. But at the same time, you've got to do what you got to do to get some level of evidence and try to identify causality in the changes that you're making. Otherwise, again, you're back to where we were years ago, where we were just shooting blind, right? And making changes without understanding what impact those changes have. And then there are other tactics that we bring into play, like proxy and pray, I've heard it called. So rather than looking at the conversion at the end of the funnel, use a proxy like engagement or bounce rate or something like that, where that they're going to have it's going to have a higher conversion rate overall. And if you run the math on it, you'll get a result on your test faster than you would by trying to measure like sales or transactions all the way at the end of the funnel. Yeah. So those are some things that we do for lower traffic sites. And then the other thing that I'd recommend for smaller businesses is, have the one advantage that you have is you can iterate faster in many cases than larger companies. So have the right structure in place and have the right mentality that you're going to be sort of evidence driven and you're going to try something out, or you might try a bunch of things out, and you're going to use the information, whatever information you collect, to implement that into your site. And often the advantage that you have there is that your ability to complete that iteration cycle is actually faster than a larger company with many layers of decision makers and things like branding that have to come into play, right? You can move faster, you can test, you can experiment. So take advantage of that.
Yeah, you have to really dial into what tactics you want to approach on your small business site, because you shouldn't be trying a whole bunch of random stuff, because then you're not going to accomplish anything. But if you can clearly identify where people are clicking on your site and what people like, you can spend more time in those areas, like your about page or certain landing pages or your sidebar or your header, whatever it is. You find out where they're actually clicking and then start testing there. Because people are kind of already interacting and engaging. And if you can actually get more people to click, get more people to opt in, get more people to convert, then you could figure out what they like and just do more of that.
Absolutely. Do the stuff that's working and get rid of the stuff that's not, right? And I think you bring up a really good point there, Alex, is that a lot of it is about focus, right? As a small business or a startup, you only have so many resources that you can expend, time, money, et cetera. So the faster and more sort of capable when you can move in a more structured and fast and quicker way to identify the things that are working and focus in on those things, you'll be in a better position to succeed, because you're making more intelligent use of the limited resources that you have, and you're wasting less.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're a small business, more than likely you're using Aweber or MailChimp, and even in those in their stats, you can see how many opt-ins you're getting for a certain area. If you're not meeting the same metrics as you were in your previous iteration of that widget or that sidebar, go back and don't start all over. Just don't try random things. You want to ensure that you're always increasing your baseline and measuring and growing, and that's really the only way to optimize.
Yep.
Also, you have a great post about optimizing or making your about page convert a lot better. What would be some of the tips to improve the about page?
I think your about page, and again, this can differ a little bit based on model. I think we in that post I put in there an example of like an about us page, which is often about the team, but there's also the concept of an about page being about the product. So it really kind of depends on your business and what you're trying to portray. I think fundamentally it's one of the first places people go. They want to once you've kind of hooked them with whatever your key unique proposition is to get them engaged and interested, they're going to go check you out and see, I want to learn more about this service. I want to learn more about the people behind it. And that is an opportunity, I think, to really, again, empathize with them, right? Show that you understand the problem that they have, and that you have a well thought out way to solve it, right? And too often it's an afterthought, right? And there are a lot of these areas on sites that were put up once, and then everyone gets too busy building the product or building the next great thing, and loses sight of some of these pages like the About page that are really opportunities to make that personal connection with the user and the audience. So I think that's fundamentally, especially if it's an About Us page and you're talking about the team and your experiences and that sort of thing. It's really that opportunity to build a personal connection with the customer, and ultimately that brokers trust, that gets them to further engage, and that brings them closer into your circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brian Eisenberg calls shifting you call it shifting the focus from we to you, and Brian Eisenberg calls it we copy. We all of them.
And I've made that mistake. It's speaking from some personal pain here. The classic example is the software company that has all of their features on the page. Well, as a customer, I don't care about your features. How does it solve my problem? Here's the pain that I have right now. Tell me how you can solve it. And it's a constant battle because on a day-to-day basis, you're thinking in terms of features, and it's natural. It's as people who are builders, it's natural for us to think that way. But I think the pivot that we have to make when we are speaking to customers is framing that in the context of the problem that you're solving for them, and really empathizing with their pain points.
Yeah, I think us as agency owners or consultants, we help our clients do this stuff, but we never actually do it for ourselves. I know I go and I read my copy. I'm like, oh, we, yes, me, I, and I'm like, oh, I'm so guilty of all these things I'm telling people not to do.
Yeah, and it's funny that you're spending so much time on my website because I'm having the same thought in my head. It's the carpenter's house is the one that's never finished, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know that there are many of these things that I would like to go back and improve, but it's balancing time and client work and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So as you do your consulting, what would be some tactics or actionable advice that you'd give somebody to help them improve their conversions?
I think one of the most important things, that I've learned as I've gone through now many, CRO projects and clients, is don't just take when you're setting up your test, try to measure as much as you can, right? So if it's a page where you're just trying to get, it's at the top of the funnel and you're just trying to get engagement, sure, measure the amount of clicks on the sign up button and measure things like the bounce rate and that sort of thing. But also make sure what we do, for example, is send that data back to Google Analytics. And you can do that with Optimizer, you can do that with Visual Website Optimizer, you can do that with Convert, you can do it a lot of different ways. Make sure you're sending that data back to your analytics tool as dimensions so you can measure not only the activity that's happening at the top of the funnel that's going to be, what your tool measures, but also the activity all the way through to the end. Because we've definitely seen in many cases that, you're testing two variations. For example, in your CTA copy, one gets twice the engagement. In terms of the people clicking on the button, but at the end of the funnel, in terms of signups or transactions, converts at 20%, right? For, relative to the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, if you're not measuring across the funnel, you would lose that information, and you might make a poor decision right at the outset, which is going to have a significant impact as you sort of iterate your way through the funnel. So definitely trying to get to, and I was at Opticon a few weeks ago, and one of the speakers talked about that 360-degree view of the customer. Try to, as much as you can, understand all of the implications, not just the very sort of specific thing that you're measuring, but the entire implication of that variation through the customer lifecycle. And that can get challenging. If you think about a SaaS business, you might even have to measure the effect on churn all the way through to like that first impression variation.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy one to do. But if you can get there, and you can get there without it being too much of a burden on the organization, it's powerful.
Yeah, well, there's definitely some complicated things that you brought up there, but having those tests completed and then maybe rerunning them later in the year, you can get different results all the time.
Absolutely.
So you have to really figure out what works for you, but don't be surprised if you run a test now and you run the same test later on and you get different results.
Right. And trying, and part of the challenge, and I'm sure you're aware of this in terms of running an agency, is explaining some of that to clients.
Oh, yeah.
You're explaining not only why you could have different results different times you run the test, but also why, your test, the first few days could start out, you have this 50% lift, and your tool is telling you it's at a 98% confidence interval, and then all of a sudden it starts regressing back to the mean, right? And that starts converging. And why did that happen? And why is it taking so long? Why do we need to run it? The test for a minimum of 14 days or 21 days or whatever your testing methodology is. I think having a good sense of how the math works, how the statistics work, and why you need to design your tests in a certain way, run them for a certain period, and retest, as you mentioned, are important things to understand, because if you do it wrong, you're not going to get the results, and it could actually be detrimental to your optimization effort.
Yeah, especially being able to roll back if you aren't seeing the lift after you've released something. Being able to roll back is key. You always want to have that backup plan.
Right.
Awesome. Well, let's move into specifically FunnelEnvy. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do and what do you offer.
Yeah, so we offer conversion optimization services. So very specifically, I think the core of that is user experience design. So like any good marketer, working with our clients to get in the head of our customers, and a lot of times, you may have surveys and some data already. We try to take that to the next level, and then look at your user experience. You being the client, looking at the user experience and based on our knowledge of user experience, and we've looked at a lot of sites, a lot of landing pages, a lot of checkout funnels, and trying to figure out where those points of friction might be and build hypotheses off that. The second aspect is getting into the data, as I mentioned. So what is the data telling us about where people are not engaging, where they're dropping off, where they're bouncing, and always within the context of the business. What's really going to move the needle on the business, and what are the sort of metrics or KPIs that the business has that we want to affect. And then the third aspect of it is, as I mentioned, testing. We'll actually go in and set up the tests, run the test, design the test based on the hypotheses, prioritize those tests, because not all tests and not all hypotheses are created alike. They're going to vary based on level of effort and potential impact that they have and that sort of thing, and actually run them. And what we do then is execute those tests, report on the tests, hand back the results, especially on the ones that win, and not all tests win, but the ones that do, hand that back to the team, and they go implement that. So we become basically the sort of optimization shop for that company, if you will. And it works well because it's sort of like balancing your checkbook. A lot of companies know that they should be doing it, and I don't balance my checkbook. But a lot of people know that they should be doing it, but it's something that people are just busy building product or the business that they just don't have time to do. So with the tools, with tools like Optimize these, and they've gotten to the point where it's easy to do as a third party. You can come in and basically manipulate the page and the experience and do segmentation and do it sort of independently of the product team. And that wasn't true several years ago when I started doing this, but now you can. And so we're able to come in and basically improve their numbers and just hand them results. And I think the biggest benefit and the biggest thing that I love about that is that for many companies, it changes the way that they make decisions. Fundamentally changes the way they make decisions. So rather than it being, sort of a top-down, here's what we need to do because I think this is going to work sort of thing, it becomes a much more collaborative environment where, it engages everyone within the organization to kind of bring ideas to the table because at the end of the day, we can test all of them. And we can make decisions based on evidence rather than gut and rather than the person writing the paychecks or signing the paychecks making decisions. So that's probably the thing that I am most excited about in terms of what we do and what I do is taking companies and changing and pivoting their decision framework through conversion optimization.
And where do you see the most opportunity in some of the testing you do? It's like headlines, forums, call to actions?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time with headlines and copy. I think, even with, and certainly we use video and pictures and things like that on the site. But I still feel like at the end of the day, people read first, and copy is king on the web. So certainly we spend a lot of time with headlines and copy. But we do get into, of course, we're dealing with call to actions, forms, that sort of thing. It's really, we take all of those tools within our tool belt and good practices that we have, and we try to marry that to, where the business is and what the customers want. And I think if you bring those together, you have a good structure for creating great sort of hypotheses and ideas about what you can test and what you can change, and improve conversions.
Yeah. So now that you testing and you're gathering a lot of data and you've figured out a plan and what's really started to really work for you, what would be one solid tip that you can give to optimizers to help them take their websites to the next level?
Well, I think two things: be patient and be structured about it. When you start, and this is probably for someone who's kind of just getting started down the optimization path.
Yeah.
Your first few tests are invariably going to fail, right? Your first several tests are going to fail. That's not a bad thing, right? If you're learning from those, if you're looking at the data and going, well, we thought this would have effect, and in actuality, it had the opposite effect. And if you're asking why and able to understand why, that's a powerful thing. That's a powerful thing in and of itself. And you've gone through the process of building out that test and the I've heard it referred to as the organizational will to hypothesize, create a test, gather data, and learn from that data is a victory in and of itself, right? So don't give up there. Keep doing it. Eventually, you're going to have that winning test if you keep learning, and you're going to know more about your customers. And ultimately, I think it's the only competitive advantage we have left, right, is our ability to better engage our customers and better serve our customers and do it faster than the next guy, right? So if you're going through that process, you're going to win. And I think what I'm particularly interested in is, as I mentioned, I think tools like Optimizely have given us a lot of power in terms of being able to get tests out the door quickly. But I think there's still a gap there in terms of our ability to then take those winning tests and implement that back into the product. And you see a lot of times that we have clients, and I've talked to other people where the winning test is still sitting out on the tool, right? Because the developers haven't gotten around to that yet. And I'm not faulting developers. I am one. It just takes some time to, and there's a bit of a gap because you set up something in a tool. That doesn't mean that they can just plop it into the solution. So that's something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about. And I think in terms of your overall ability to iterate, that's a gap that I think still needs to be closed. Taking tests and moving them into the product, deliberately and in the right way, but as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that whole feedback loop. How quickly can you iterate and implement that into production and do more things that people want? The faster you're going to grow over time. Let's close by telling people how they can find out more about you.
Sure. So we're at FunnelEnvy.com is the agency. We're also on Twitter at FunnelEnvy, and I'm on Twitter as well. You can search for my name and find it. And it's a long last name, so I have to type it out. But yeah, we're there, and happy to connect anytime.
Thanks, Sarah, for your time.
All right. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you for watching the Marketing Optimization Podcast with Alex Designs. Please remember to subscribe to all of the videos in my YouTube channel. Thank you.